Hello, everyone. I'm the J.R. Stewart, and welcome to my podcast. Today's podcast, the subject of it is Should I Forgive a Cheater? And this is an email I received. I'm not going to mention the person's name, just to say, let's just say woman X. So Miss X sent me an email asking me this question. Should I forgive a cheater? And so we're going to delve into this a little closer. And then the second part of the question, not should I should forgive a cheater, but should I take him back? So I guess I've already revealed the nature of the relationship. This is a woman. I don't know if she's married or not. It doesn't matter. Betrayal is betrayal. And evidently she is in a situation where this person is cheating on her, or she feels he's cheating on her. And I'm assuming that they are separated and that she's asking, should I take him back? And there are a lot of women who are faced with this question, and a lot of men too, but the Chronicles of Eve are about the Eves, about the women. So I'll try to limit it to that environment, to the discussion, to the audience. So this video is really made for the Eves out there and the women out there. And another question I received, so I think I'll use this video to clear up a couple of questions, is what's the difference between a woman and an Eve? Well, let me just say this, that Eves are women who are open to allowing the love of God to flow through them. So not only are you a woman, but generally Eves are wives or a really great potential to be potential great wives. And so they accept their role as vessels to allow the love of God to flow through them. And also, the Eves are women who adhere to 4 basic principles that the Bible calls on them to follow. One, to honor your husband, to respect your husband, to respect his authority, and then to submit unto him. So there's not a whole lot. I mean, the instructions for women in the Bible are simple. So this to men, that there's a long list of instructions. Not really long. It's not. I don't want to make it seem like it's complicated or difficult to love a woman. It's not. But there are a few more instructions in the Bible for men on how to love and how to love a woman correctly and how to be obedient to God. So let's jump into it. Let's do what we do best, which is answer the questions that are being posed to me. So I want to appreciate Woman X for the email. I think I responded back to you and I told you how much I appreciate it. And this is a very good question. I actually want to hear from women on the things that you're interested in. Don't just assume that as a man, very smart man, very wise man, that I'm going to be able to figure it out. I will figure out the answer to your question, but as far as what you want to hear, I actually want to hear from you. So let's get started. Infidelity, let's define the word first of all, so we'll make sure that we're all on the same page, is the breaking of a promise to remain faithful to a romantic partner, whether that promise was part of marriage, a private utterance, agreement between lovers, or unspoken assumption. And sometimes we get ourselves into trouble with that unspoken assumption, but generally sometimes when people sleep together, it's men and women. You know, you have sex, or you Netflix and chill, as I call it. The assumption is that we're a couple now, even though we haven't declared anything. But those are generally the kind of the groups. And so if you break that vow, and having people say, well, we never declared ourselves as anything. I never told you I was your boyfriend, or I never told you I was your girlfriend, or that we were exclusive. And somehow that makes it okay to be unfaithful. It doesn't. As unthinkable as the notion of breaking such a promise may be at the time they are made, infidelity is common. And when it happens, it raises a thorny question. Should you stay? Can trust be rebuilt? Or is there no choice but to pack up and move on? So this is a question that Woman X posed. Should I forgive a cheater? And should I stay with him? Should I let him come back? So these are questions that have to be answered. And so we're going to try to answer that and give you some advice on what to do, ladies, best I can. And feel free to look me up on my website, thejrstewart.com. My contact information is there. If you want to comment on this video or any other video, or if you have questions, there are some things that you want me to cover in future videos, please send me the information. I will safeguard your information. I'm not going to tell people your name or who you are, where you're from, so someone can try to figure it out. I'm not going to do my absolute best. I will protect your information, I promise you. Most people are aware of the cost of cheating in a relationship. It's not like we don't know this. We do. And so when we do it, we fully understand, because we always try to do it in the darkness. We're not open with our cheating. We don't take the person we're cheating with around the person that we're cheating on. We do our best to keep them separated, especially in a marriage. Betrayal can lead to divorce and parental disruption. Very bad on kids. The consequences of cheating are enormous. And infidelity is a predictor of depression, anxiety, and domestic violence. Ladies, listen to what I just said. Infidelity is a predictor of depression, anxiety, and domestic violence. And I say that because this is what the studies bear out. And eventually, you guys know that this always ends up in biblical texts. Not that I can't use other texts, I can. But I generally go to the Bible because the Bible is sort of the best source of where all the information is collected. It comes from a lot of different sources, trust me. But the Bible was the best source of where the information is collected. So, yet many stay away, prompting the question, why? In surveys of individuals who have cheated, fallen out of love, seeking a variety, and feeling neglected were the most common cited reasons. People, ladies, let me say this. Wanting something different or falling out of love. Generally, the women, I can already break this down for you, although I didn't read all the way through the study to see the breakdown. It may have been in some chart in the back. But I can tell you just from personal experience. Women tend to say that I don't know this person anymore when I fell out of love. That's not a response for men for why they cheat. Men tend to say, well, I just wanted something different. I didn't mean anything. I just wanted something different. Longer hair, different skin. I don't know. Just wanted something different, more attention. And both of them are sort of practicing and avoiding what's really at issue. What really is at issue is the third reason that's cited, feeling neglected. And so the feeling neglected is a catch-all for the first two. But trust me, the real answer to why people are cheating, if you're not an absolute bad person, if the guy was not a piece of crap guy when you met him, if he was, then him cheating on you should not be a surprise. But if you thought he was a halfway decent guy, someone that you could see yourself with, and you got with him, and then he cheated on you, well, I can tell you right now that most likely he was feeling neglected. And so let's get into my biblical references. So my answer is going to be a little different. My wife told me to warn everyone, put in my disclaimer. She said, be warned that they may shoot the messenger. Because I always tell her, don't shoot the messenger. She said, be warned that your audience, the women out there, may shoot the messenger. If in any way you try to blame them for what some piece of crap guy has done to them, been violating them. As you can see, my wife is very, very supportive of women. And this is a very sensitive matter for her. And not to make light of it, I know this is a very sensitive matter for a lot of women out there. And so this is not a funny, laughing matter for me. So let's get into my message. So I'm taken back to the story of Jesus and the woman who was an adulterer, committed adultery. And of course, you guys know the story. Basically the crowd had gathered, everybody had their stones, and they go in and stone this woman to death. Then, of course, Jesus steps in, and he basically tells the crowd, who is without sin, cast the first stone. Well, of course, we know the rest of the story. Everybody put their rocks down. I apologize. Let me turn this pesky phone off, all these notifications that we constantly get. So there. So everyone knows the story that she's getting ready to be stoned to death. And so Jesus steps in and he makes the declaration that he who is without sin cast the first stone. And then everyone thinks about it and they put their rocks down. Then Jesus sort of, as he was bent down to shield this woman. I mean, this is a warrior. I hear men say that, when I talk about being a warrior, they say, well, Jesus wasn't a warrior. Why are you challenging me to be a warrior? Well, Jesus was a warrior. And here's a man who's a woman who's getting ready to be stoned. And he is shielding her. He bends down to shield her. So he's willing to take the stones himself, take the punishment himself. And so when he stands up, he straightens up, he asks the woman, where are your accusers? Where are they? Look around. Where are they? Has no one condemned you? And of course, you guys in the Ways of the Warriors collection, I did a video on the congregation of the mighty. Those are the warriors, the peacemakers. The Bible says that the peacemakers shall be the children of God. The peacemakers. The peacemakers are also the warriors. And the warriors are the man gods. And God says that you are man gods, because you're the peacemakers, you're my children, and I will be your God. But in that passage over in Psalms, God is complaining that the warriors, the gods, man gods, are not judging correctly. That you're giving praise to people who are doing bad things. And it's not that it's wrong to judge. That's not the case. Warriors are supposed to judge, but you're supposed to judge in the right way. And so Jesus asked, has no one condemned you? And she looks around and she says, no one, Lord. That was her answer, no one. So he has not only shielded her physically, but he's also shielded her from condemnation by the crowd, for people judging her. And basically what people take from that passage, see, JR, that means that you shouldn't judge. No, it doesn't. What it means is that you shouldn't judge unless you're worthy to judge. If you're not a man God, you're not a warrior, you're not part of the congregation of the mighty, then no, you shouldn't be judging. You have no right. But the warriors, the peacemakers, God's children, his warriors have the right to judge. You have the right to decide who's wicked and who's not, because you have an obligation to deliver people out of the hand, the afflicted out of the hands of the wicked. Jesus goes on to say, then neither do I condemn you. He didn't say I didn't have the right to condemn you. The passage is, neither do I. That I have every right to condemn you, but I don't. As a warrior, I have every right to say what you did was wrong and condemn you, but I don't. And then the passage says that Jesus tells the woman to now go and sin no more. So ladies, this is your first hint. This is I use this passage Because when the question of should I take them back, we're going to get to that. We're going to tie it all together, I promise you. This is why I always recommend that you read the Bible in its entirety, from Genesis to Revelation. You have to see the bigger picture. And church and preachers and pastors and priests, bishops and cardinals, all these, they don't always give you the bigger picture. They're somehow convinced themselves that they are so important to this whole process of salvation that they're the only ones who can understand the text. And you have to come to them to get the answers. And they only give you a few of the answers. This is part of the problem I have with church. I'm going to get to that also, and why I have a problem with church. Not that church people are bad people. I'm not saying that, but you'll better understand as I get further on this. So I also want to mention that I have several passages that I always look at. Do you realize there are over 40 different translations of the Bible? I mean, I try to keep up. I try to follow when I'm doing my research. I try to read through the different passages, the different translations. I'm always curious about the slightly different variation on the translation that each Bible offers. So in the New International Version of the Bible, the same passage of go and sin no more translates to go now and leave your life of sin. Basically saying the same thing. But like I said, every translation translates a little differently, and I do my best to try to cover multiple verses, and so I can get the full meaning. See how people looked at it from different translations and try to reconcile that into a meaning. And now we go on to one of the most important verses of the Bible to me. They're all important, but this one stands out for me. Jesus then turns to the crowd after protecting the woman, shielding her with his body, declaring to the crowd that, hey, whichever one of you is without sin, y'all throw the first stone. I'm going to protect this woman. And then afterwards, he stands up for her by saying, hey, look, I could condemn you. I have the right. I'm a warrior. I'm the Son of God. I am the light. I can condemn you, but I don't. I choose not to. I choose to protect you. So ladies, this is what you look for in a man who's a warrior. I keep saying this over and over. Don't get yourself into trouble by dealing with men who are not warriors. It's a bad first step. And if you do deal with one who's not a warrior, he needs to be open. He needs to be open to becoming a warrior, to allow God to work in his life, and for you to allow God to work in your life so he becomes a warrior, or even better, a man God, and that you become the gift that God promises for obedience. That's what Adams and Eves are. They're Adams are obedient to God, and women who are Eves, the love of God flows through them. And they accept the 4 laws, the 4 principles, or expectations of God. So they're obedient to God also in those 4 ways. If you're an Eve and your husband is not an Adam, or your fiance or boyfriend is not an Adam, then guess what? If he's not willing to work to become an Adam, then you're going to have a problem. And I'm going to get to that further on also. So Jesus then stands up and turns to the crowd. And he speaks. And Jesus says, I am the light of the world. The light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness. I'm the light of the world, and whoever follows me is never. Not said sometimes, not maybe, there are times, no. The promise of Christ is that I am the light of the world, and that if you follow me, you will never walk in darkness. He says, but we'll have the light of life. Notice this passage doesn't say anything about salvation and afterlife. I hear so many people, so-called Christians, trying to beat me over the head with the Bible. Oh, well, JR, I accept, Christ as my Lord and Savior. And so I'm saved. Okay. If that's your belief, if that's what your church leaders have told you, then I understand why you think that way. But it's not exactly what the man God, what the Son of God, the warrior, says. And I'll repeat the words in case you didn't hear me. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk. Walk is a verb. The passage always has meant and translated into you follow my way of life. You live your life the way I'm living my life. You adjust my teachings, my philosophy, my principles to your life. When I'm your Lord, you follow me, not just by accepting that I'm an authority over you. That's part of it. But the other part of it is that you adjust your life according to my will, not your own understanding. It's all about the walk. So this is what I tell my clients, for men who come to me, and I work with them, and I hear all the excuses all the time. Well, Jerry, I'm just not that expressive. I'm just not this. I'm not that. All these reasons why you can't be obedient to God. It's amazing to me. But yet, you want the gift of God. You want the wife who loves you, respects you, values you, all those good things, who submit unto you. Well, yeah, JR, yeah, I do. But yet you don't want to be obedient and do what God has asked you to do towards that woman in return to get the gift. And I'm going to get to that. So whoever follows me will never walk in darkness. You'll never, ever have to worry about being deceived. And that's what the darkness is. We live in a world where kids are being deceived. People are telling boys that they're girls, girls that they're boys. Telling men to be more like women. Stop being men what God made you to be. We have all kinds of deception going on constantly, every generation. The woke crowd, the cancer crowd, the Me Too, the feminists, all these other political groups that just want power and will push any ungodly agenda out there to get it. Constantly. The warrior Christ says to follow me, and you'll never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. That means today, right now. Not salvation, not the afterlife. You'll have the light right now. Over in Matthew, have you not read that he who created, that's God, created them from the beginning, that he made a male and a female. No binary, no 10,000 quadrillion million different sexes. He made, God, the creator, from the beginning, made male and female. And therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother, hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they're no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. And why do I pick this passage? Because many of us have certificates that say we're married. Those are man certificates. That's not God's certificate. Oh, well, gee, I got married in the church. So isn't that being blessed by God? No. That's still man's doing. You paid to use that church, and you paid the pastor to sign that certificate, the marriage license. If you understand the story of creation, the story of Genesis, Eve understood something that Adam didn't understand. And I put this in some earlier versions of the Chronicles of Eve. You have to watch the series, please. She understood that we can't stay here. They understand the consequence of eating of this fruit. I know I was deceived a little bit, but we can't stay here. She understood the wisdom of God better than Adam did. This is why Adams listened to their Eves. Eve understood this. We can't stay here. God was the father, and he was also the mother. And we're a couple now. We are married. We're the first marriage, the first union between man and woman. We are one flesh now, and we can't stay here. And so what God's brought together is going to stay together. Adam and Eve leaves the garden. They fulfill what needed to be done. I know people have a different slant and different translation on that, but trust me, when there were 40 different translations of the Bible, I promise you, at least a fourth of them have a different version of the story of how sin was introduced into the world. Over in Eastern Europe, where they use a slightly different Bible, Eve is a saint. She's a godsend because she understood what God was trying to achieve, an overall purpose. Didn't want to just kick you out of the garden. Wanted to make sure that there was a lesson attached to it, that I could start the teaching process. But you were never, ever meant to stay in this garden forever. This is not going to be a forever thing. At some point, it had to end. So let me figure out a way to bring that about in the best way possible. Eve was wise enough to understand what God's overall purpose was. This is why she had to be protected. So therefore, what God has brought together, God has brought together. And I'm making an emphasis on that because, to me, a lot of marriages are not godly. They're not brought together by God. They were brought together by people. You decided to accept a man in your life who was not godly, who was not an Adam. You accepted that. You decided that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine, provided that man loves you enough to be open, to be obedient to God, and to learn how to do it the right way, to love you the way God outlines for him to love you. If he does that, then that's fine. He could be the worst piece of crap man on the planet. But if he loves you enough to be open, to be obedient to God, to love you the way God has outlined for him to love you, and for you to be open for God to work in your life so you become a gift to him, then at that point, your marriage is now sanctioned by God because you're both obedient. You're one flesh. And see, all this distraction, all this darkness, violence, feeling neglected, those are not elements or aspects of a godly marriage. God don't bring together chaos. God don't bring you together for all this kind of darkness to be hanging over your marriage. In fact, God says that for the husband to bless your wife, to rejoice over her. You bless her, I'll bless you. You rejoice over her, I will rejoice over you. And if you don't do these things, you don't love her the correct way, then you're setting yourself up for hell. For a hellish life. 1 Corinthians, I'll put these further down in the description. I'm not going to give all the books and verses. I've done that in the past. It just takes up time. I don't think anyone really cares. So I'm just going to say 1 Corinthians. Flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, except for infidelity, for cheating. Now, I started these things off by citing the studies that social scientists have done. All these papers out there, they conclude one thing: depression, mental illness. People who cheat are sick people. And God doesn't condone sickness. God helps people who are sick. But you have to be willing to want to help yourself. This is what 1 Corinthians is sharing to you. To sin, But the sexual immorality person sins against his own body. You're making yourself sick by cheating. You're making yourself depressed, suicidal. You're not happy when you do this. You can't be, because not only are you violating your wife, and God forbid you have children in this union, you're violating them, their expectations. You're breaking up a union, security, all the things you worked and built in this marriage. It's being sacrificed. That is a great sacrifice for a few minutes of pleasure because you feel neglected. And it could have been avoided. It certainly could have been avoided if you had reached out to me. Not to say I'm a great savior, I'm not. I'm just here, I'm just a person, humble person delivering a message and offering my help for men and for women now. I'm going to expand this. You know, we always say that we're the school for the better making of men. But actually, we're the school for the better making of men and women. We want men and women to be in the light, to have the promise of light that Jesus promised. And we want Adam and Eve to come together. We want the men and women that are out there who are trying to figure this out and come together and make it work. We want you all, to be transformed into Adam and Eves and work together. Okay, let's continue because I think I have one more passage I want to share, and then I'm going to wrap this up. You cover the Lord's altar with tears. Crocodile tears. This was Cain crying to God. Oh, God. You know, you accept my brother's offering. You don't accept mine. You don't bless me the way you bless Abel. Malachi says, you cover the Lord's altar with tears, with weeping and groaning, because he no longer regards the offerings or accept it with favor from your hand. From your hand. Oh, and you know, JR, I tithe. I give to the collection at church. I tithe. Okay. But if you're a sinner, if you're out here doing wrong, especially, man, I'm telling you, the worst sin you can commit in life. I'm not sin is sin. I'm not going to, I hate trying to elevate one above the other, but it becomes obvious when you read the Bible in its entirety from beginning to end, you get the bigger picture. There's a special carve out for wives, for Eves. You do not transgress against them. Absolutely not. If you're a man out here who's cheating on your wife, your girlfriend, the person you're just kicking it with, if you're not doing right by the woman in your life, regardless what her status is, you are setting yourself up for failure. He says, you cover the Lord's altar with tears. The Lord's altar is something sacred. That can even be construed, even before there was a church, as meaning the church. The church wanted to position themselves as the altar for God. Okay, fine then. Position yourself as the altar for God. Malachi says, you cover the Lord's altar with tears, with weeping and groaning, because he no longer regards the offering or accepts it with favor from your hand. But you say, what? Why does he not? This is what Cain was asking. God, why not? And Malachi answers the question. Because the Lord was witness between you and your wife of youth. Let me explain what the wife of youth means. This means when you were young, you were truly in love. You did everything. You were doing things the right way, even though you didn't understand, because you were youth and immature. It has nothing to do with age. You didn't fully understand what God really wanted, but you were doing the right thing. You were doing enough of the right thing that she was your Eve. Things were great. And then you learned how to be deceitful. You learned how to take a problem of you feeling neglected, you're not getting the attention that you want. The Bible says for you to live with your wife in understanding. So here's some understanding, guys, I'm going to share with you, even though this video is for the Eves. When women have children, the Bible says for the husband to rejoice over his wife, and God will rejoice over you. You rejoice over her, and God will rejoice over your marriage, over you. When you don't rejoice over her, guess who stands in, becomes the substitute? Your children. There's nothing like when a mother says, hey, come give me a hug and kiss before you go. And the child comes running up to her, arms wide, stretches wide open as they can. They jump up into her arms. They give her a hug and a kiss. Do you know how that energizes a woman? You know what that does for the Eves out there? For that kind of love to be returned back to them? There are some studies that say that this is almost sexual. That there are some women who feel guilty about how much love they get back from their children. The love that they should be receiving, the blessing, the rejoicing that they should be receiving from whom? The Adams of the world. But because they don't get it from you, Adam, or you want to be Adam, you're not even a warrior. You're not even a caveman at this point. You're part of the wicked and the deceitful. You're like, well, Jerry, I'm not doing anything bad. No, you're not doing anything bad, but you're not doing anything right. And the absence of bad does not make you good. The absence of bad just makes you neutral. And if you watch the ways of the warrior, the ways of the caveman, this is what I explained to you. These so-called good guys out here who think they're good because, oh, well, Jerry, I'm not bad. Well, maybe you're not bad, but you're not good either. You're not a warrior. Because the Lord was witness between you and the wife of your youth, to whom you have been faithless. This person you cheated on. Though she is your companion and your wife by covenant. And so Malachi asks, did you not make one of them with your spirit in the union with God? Did you not say before friends, family, and God in this so-called church of yours that you want to love, honor, obey, respect, all these good things, to death do you part? Did you not make that covenant? And here you are, now you're breaking the covenant? You're cheating on the sacred person in this union? The person who the love of God flows through? The person that God has told you over and over that you will be cut off if you don't do right by her. Did you not make that? Did you not say, I do? And women, did you not select this person? At the time that things start going bad in a marriage and a union, you start recognizing you don't have the gift. You're not the gift to him. That he's not walking in the light of life. That he's not a warrior. He's not obedient to God. When you start recognizing that there are problems, that's the time you both have to recommit yourself. Like, look, okay, maybe we got a little bit off track here. We live in a very deceitful world. We're going to do things a little differently. We're going to go back to basics. We're going to go back to rediscovering what God wants from us, and we're going to commit ourselves to that, and we're going to be obedient. We're going to get back to what we were when we were in love with each other. And I was the wife of your youth, and you were the husband of my youth. I was your Eve, and you were my Adam. This is what we're going to work towards. Before things get so bad and so off track, off the rails, as my wife put it. So Malachi goes on to say, so guard yourself in your spirit. Not in your physical form. He doesn't say, watch out, you're going to walk outdoors and that lightning bolt may come down from the heavens and cause you some problems. No, he said, so guard yourselves in your spirit. And let none of you be faithless to the wife of your youth, to the woman that you fell in love with. Don't do it. Don't cheat on her. Guard your spirit. Don't cheat on her. For the man who does not love his wife, love her according to God, but divorces her, there's that piece of paper, says to the Lord, the God of Israel, cover his garments. This is what God says. The God of Israel. Cover his garments with violence, says the Lord. So Malachi warns again. So guard yourselves in the spirit and do not be faithless. God says cover his garments with violence. Did not the social scientists in all their studies, millions upon millions of dollars spent to figure out what God's already told them? But because we don't accept God's word, we're not obedient to what God is trying to tell us. We have to go out and try to discover it for ourselves. Here is the Bible telling you that when a man cheats, he's not faithful, he's faithless. He divorces his wife, and divorce not necessarily in the legal sense, but he divorces her by splitting up with her. If you accept her as the wife of your youth, it doesn't matter if you're kicking it, as the young people put it, you're dating, you're engaged, or you're married. If she is the wife of your youth, of your silliness, of your love, you're happy. You're doing things the right way. You don't have to plan a date night because every night's a date night. You just want to be with this person. She's your ride or die. That's the wife of your youth. And if you're with the wife of your youth, breaking up with her, cheating on her, is not what God expects you to do. What God expects you to do is to use that energy and enthusiasm and to continue to develop being obedient to his word. Being obedient to the process, the methodology. If you do that, if you work towards becoming Adam and Eve, then that union, once you get to that point, will be blessed by God. The two of you will become one. And what God has now brought together, sanctioned into one, no man, no deception, no darkness is going to separate you. All the issues that you're experiencing in your marriage, in your relationships, cheating, violence, lying, deceit, heartache, you're not supposed to have any of that in a godly union. So I don't care what the piece of paper says, what the judge says, what the minister says, how much money you pay for the license. That does not make you one flesh. And if you have to divorce from that man, so be it. You're not committing sin as far as I'm concerned. And I am a warrior, so I have a right to judge. If you wasn't one flesh brought together by God, then you don't have to worry about separating from this person and it being a sin. Of course, we know there's plenty of examples in the Bible where divorce is a sin. Unless your divorce is because of adultery. But that presupposes that the union itself was a godly union. If it wasn't a godly union, then fine. Your certificate of divorce means nothing to God. God doesn't care about that piece of paper. Never have, never will. That piece of paper is only important to you and the legal system that issued it. So I'm going to wrap this up. Here's the message. So before I wrap up, I do have an ask. If you like the video, find some value, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. You can go out and watch my Ways of the Warrior, Ways of the Caveman, the Chronicles of Eve's video collections. They're out there. And then, if you find within your heart to want to support me, I have a Patreon page called The Ways of the Caveman. $5 a month. And please, you can go out there and support me that way. If you need help, men and women, this video is for the Eves, for the women out here who want to become Eves, or the Eves who are having some trouble. Go to my website, thegrstewart.com. Get my contact information. Reach out to me. I'll be glad to work with you and the man in your life. If he has stopped being an Adam to you, all is not lost. Divorce is not the answer. Shouldn't be the first answer. Do everything possible for the kids. And I'm not suggesting that you stay in a bad marriage. That's not what I'm saying. So I'm going to answer, and let me go ahead and answer that question right now, because that was one of the other questions. Should I let this man back into my life? And the answer is yes, with a condition. If he's willing to restore his obedience to God, become an Adam, to you, to your children, then yes, take him back. If the answer is no, you knew who I was before you married me, you knew who I was before you started dating me. If the answer is no, that he's not going to be obedient to God, he's not going to work towards being an Adam, then there's no sin in letting him go, separating from him. There's no sin in divorcing him. In fact, it is expected. God does not expect you to be with a piece of crap guy just to have a family, to have children. That's part of it. But the other part of it is that God expects you to be with someone who does it the right way. So that's the end of the story. So if you like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, support me on Patreon. If you need help, if you need some one-on-one counseling, go to my website, thegrstewart.com. Find my information. It's all out there. Reach out to me. I'll be glad to work with the man in your life. I'll be glad to work with you guys as a group, couple. Remind you what it means to be an Adam and Eve. And we can work towards it together. I would love nothing more than to see men and women evolve into Adam and Eves and do things the right way. Your life will be so much more enriching. All the things that you thought marriage was and expected. Men, if you want a wife who's a gift to you, without blame, without blemish, without wrinkles, to be perfect creation for you, that's the promise of God for obedience. Wives, if you want an Adam who walks in the light, even if he's not a Christian. Jesus didn't say anything about being a Christian. But if you respect me enough to at least trust in what I'm saying, walk in my footsteps. It's the actions that's more important than the belief. You don't believe I'm the Son of God? Fine. You don't believe I'm the light in the way? Fine. But follow my footsteps, follow what I say, apply it to your life, and then see what happens. If you receive the gift, the promise of light in your life, then hopefully use that as the impetus, as a catalyst to become one of my followers. So that's my challenge. I'm going to leave you all with a challenge. And the challenge, once again, comes from a poem called Flanders Field. It was written to remind people who survived the Great War the tremendous sacrifice that Jesus made for his church body, the sacrifice that others have made for you. That we all have an obligation to respect the sacrifice. And the challenge goes like this: to you from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies blow in Flanders Field. God bless you.